Hilchas Nazirus Perek Shlishi. It's just like we learned that Nazirus Be'etzem includes three inyonim. The Gadol Peres HaReshe, and the Issa L'Tamil L'Mesim, and Alderes Yayin or any Yesim and Agefen. So Alderes and Nazirus Be'etzem means 30 days. The minimum Nazirus is 30 days. And even if you say you want to be a Nazir less than 30 days, the minimum is 30 days. And then you could be Meisiv on 30 days. It has to be Meisiv in days, not in hours, but you could be Meisiv on 30 days. That's what we're going to learn. Perek Shlishi. Stam Nazirus Shleishim Yem. Ketzad. Misha Amar Hareini Nazir. Ein Pachas Mishleishim Yem. Afilo Amar Hareini Nazir Nazirus Gedela Ad Me'ed Harbe. So he added Nazirus Gedela Ad Me'ed Harbe. Nevertheless, since he didn't specify, Arez a Nazir Shleishim Yem. Shareli Pirish Zman, he didn't specify any specific long amount of time, an extended period of time. Now, Pirish Zman Pachas Mishleishim, Kigen Sha'amar Hareini Nazir Yem Echad, Yasore Yom, Yasum Yem, is also Harez a Nazir Shleishim Yem. She'ein Nazirus Pachas Mishleishim Yem, V'davar Za'alachim M'Pia Kabbalah. So just like we said before, just like if you say Hareini Nazir only legabi one thing, so your Nazir legabi everything, because that's the etzem inyan of Nazirus is all three things: Sai Taglachas and Sai Tumah and Sai Yayin. So al derech zeh, Nazirus by definition is 30 days, the minimal 30 days. Now Pirish Zman Yesim Shleishim Yem, Ken She'omar Echad Shleishim Yem, Arboim, Mea Yem, Mea Shana, is Arez a Nazir Kizman Shepirish, Leipachas V'Leyesis. So if he specified a time which is more than 30 days, so then it's that time. Masha'inkin, if it's less than 30 days, so then it still will be 30 days. Or he didn't specify, so it's also 30 days. Ha'emer Hareini Nazir Sho'achas is also Harez a Nazir Shleishim Yem. Amar Hareini Nazir Shleishim Yem V'Sho'achas. So if he said 31 days, so it means 31 days. Now we're saying 30 days plus an hour. Is Harez a Nazir Echad U'Shleishim Yem. She'ein Nezen L'Shoyis. Because it says Kol Yimei Nizrei. So we learn out that Nazirus could only be calculated in days. It can't have hours. So if you say Shleishim Yem B'Sho'achas, so Memele it means 31 days. Ha'omer Hareini Nazir Mikan Ad Mekem Pleni. Now the question is, what does it mean, Mikan Ad Mekem Pleni? Imli Hirzik B'Derech. If he wasn't traveling, is Harez Nazir Shleishim Yem B'Yivad. She'lenischaven Zel and Nazirus Gdela. So just like if a person would say Hareini Nazir Nazirus Gedela Ad Me'ed, we said in Halacha Aleph that's Shleishim Yem. So al derech zeh, if he says Mikan Vad Mokum Pleni, he meant a large Nazirus. A large Nazirus, since he didn't specify the time, is Shleishim Yem. However, Vim Hirzik Baderech, he was traveling, is Mhoye Mahalach Pachas Mishleishim Yem, if the time to travel to this place that he's saying Mikan Vad Mokum Pleni takes less than 30 days, is Harez a Nazir Shleishim Yem, as if he would have said Hareini Nazir Yem Echad. It's also Shleishim Yem, so it's also Shleishim Yem. However, if the time to travel to that place from Mikan Vad Mokum Pleni would take longer than 30 days, is Harez a Nazir Nazirus Achas Kiminyan Hayom. So then he is a Nazir the amount of time that it would take to travel. Halacha Vav. Misha Amar Hareini Nazir Shtei Naziris. A Shalish, a Yarba, is Harez a Nazir Kimin Shiyam Amar. He has to mukabel himself Nazirus according to the amount of times that he said. The says Kol Nazirus Mem Shleishim Yem. Each one of those Nazirus would be 30 days. Ubesave Kol Shleishim U'Shleishim. And at the end of each 30-day period, in Megalech, or maybe Korban Nesef. And then Umaschalim this Nazir Shniya. So when he says Hareini Nazir Shtei Nazirus, it means he's Nazir and Nazirus Achas of 30 days. And then he goes through the Taglachas and the Avos Korbanos that a person brings at the end of the Nazirus, and then he repeats it with a Nazir Shniya. Afilo Amar Hareini Nazir Meya Elef Nazirus, Sheyev Sheshiyichya Kizman Hazeh, 100,000 Nazirus. Nevertheless, that he's a main Achas Achar Achas, he keeps counting the Nazirus, Achiyomus, Oy, Achiyashlim, meaning Naziresev. But that's when a person says how many Nazirus he's going to have. So in other words, each Nazirus is 30 days, and the number that he's saying is the amount of time that he has to repeat those 30-day periods. Halacha Zayin. Ha'emer Hareini Nazir Kiminyan Yemes Hashana. So main Naziresev Kiminyan Yemes Hashana. He keeps repeating 30-day periods. Kiminyan is the amount of days that there are in the year. In Pirish Neisachama, if he said Neisachama, is Meina, Shleish Meiz, Vishishim, V'chomish Naziris. Kolechadnim Shleishim Yem. Each time he has to do 365 30-day periods of Naziris, and again, bring the Karbonis and the Taglachas after each 30 days. The Pirish Nas Levana is Meina, Shleish Meiz, Arbe, V'chamishim Naziris. So he brings 354 because Stam Shnas Levana, as we'll learn, is 354. Although there could be a Shana Shlema or Shana Chseira, which will be either 353 or 355, like we learned in Kiddush HaChedesh. But a regular year, which is the Chadashim HaKesidron, are 354 days. The Im Stam, he didn't say not a Shnas Acham or not a Shnas Levana. So we assume that it means, we nemon that it means a Shnas Levana, because that's Stam. Lashon of Bnei Adam Hashanim is a Shnas Levana, like the Ram will say, is Meina Shleish Meiz v'Arbe Chamishim Naziris Sharbi Anu Shekol HaNedorim Hilchin Achaloshim Bnei Adam V'Reiv Shnei Acham Shleish Meiz v'Chamisha v'Shishim Yem Meinam Lo and V'Reiv Shnei Alevona is Shleish Meiz v'Arbe v'Chamishim Yem Meinam Lo, and therefore Shnas Acham we assume it means 365 and Shnas Alevona we assume means 354. And then Keren Kolam Shana Stam Ela L'Shnas Levana. So when he said Shana Stam, we assume he meant the Shnas Levana, and it's 354 days. Halacha Ches Ha'emer Hareini Nazir Achas Umachza is Areza Nazir Shtei Naziris, because Areza Nazir Achas, Areza Nazir Achas Umachza. So the Achas is the one Naziris, and Umachza means maybe a half a Naziris. So a half a Naziris has a din of a Naziris, because we said that if you made Naziris for 1 day even, so you're a Nazir for 30 days. So it's Nachamal. Hareini Nazir Achas Umachza, Areza Nazir Shtei Naziris. Amar Hareini Nazir V'yei Machod is again. Esha Amar Hareini Nazir V'sho'achas. So there's the din Nazir plus Yei Machod, or Nazir plus Sho'achas, is Areza Nazir Shtei Naziris. Amar Hareini Nazir V'achas is Areza Nazir Shtayim again. So the Zelbazak, because Hareini Nazir means 30 days, and V'achas means another Achas, and that Achas has a din of 30 days. Hareini Nazir V'achas V'oid. So Harezi Nazir Sholish Naziris. Hareini Nazir means 30 days. Va'achas is another 30 days, and V'eid is another 30 days. Hareini Nazir Va'achas V'oid V'shuv is Harezi Nazir Aber Naziris. Hareini Nazir Shleishim Yem V'yem Mechad. He didn't like separate the Yem Mechad. If he says Hareini Nazir V'yem Mechad, so it means Hareini Nazir is one thing and V'yem Mechad is another thing. But over here, when he says Hareini Nazir Shleishim Yem V'yem Mechad, so that's the uptouch of his Nazirus. So then, as Harezi Nazir Nazirus Achas Shel Shleishim B'echad Yem. Halacha Tes. Misha Yishtei Kitei Eidem Nidnese. Eile Me'idin Shnazir Shtayim. Ve'eile Me'idin Shnazir Chomish. So they're Makchishim Zizeh, because they're talking about the Eidos B'negeh at the same time. So you take the smaller of the lesser of the two, is Areza Nazir Shtayim. Shebeklal Chomish Shtayim. V'ari Kula Me'idin Shtayim. Everyone agrees that at least it's Shtayim. And Memele B'negeh Chomish, there's Akchosha. But B'negeh Shtayim, there's no Akchosha. Everyone agrees that it was Shtayim. Halacha Yud. Mi shenazar shtei naziris. Ben shenazar shtei b'vasachas. It's another you set together. Hareini nazar shtei naziris, or nazar v'nazar. Ben shenazar zu achar zu ki gen she'amar hareini nazar yem. And then again he said hareini nazar yem. And then umanas harishena. He went ahead and he was manas harishena. He counted one naziris. V'hifrish carbon. V'achar kach nishal al harishena v'hiter nidrei. So now, Lemafreya, he was matter his neder of the neder rishena. So the din is, so in other words, if he would have had to do the first, so maybe he would have been yaitz the first, and now he has to do a second. But now that he was hitteris or rishena, so it comes that he did naziris, but lepel he wasn't mechuyev to do naziris for the rishena because he was hitteris or rishena. So memela also the rishena b'shniyah. So the naziris that he did, which, as while he was doing it, he was seemingly doing it in order for the first Naziris. But now that the first Naziris became Uis, because he was Hitteris or Rishena, so that first Nazir, that Naziris that he did, that he was actually Monas or Rishena, could be used for the Shniya. Umevi Zah carbon, he brings the carbon that he was about to bring for the Naziris or Rishena v'nifter. That's a din b'negea if he did the Naziris, and he was hifresh the carbon, and he wasn't yet mafresh the carbon. So now he was matter his Nazirus Rishena, so his Nazirus that he did was for the Shnia, and he brings the carbon for the Shnia. Now he says, Nachmar, Vafil Evi Kaparasa. He already brought the carbons, Vafil Giluk Sari, and he already had the Taglacha. So the first Nazirus is over. The first Nazirus is over. He was Mekayim the first Nazirus. And Vacharkach Nishal Allah, and now he was Nishal on his first Nazirus. So now he has a Nazirus that he did, and he already brought a carbon. And when he brought the carbon, he was under the impression that he's bringing it for the Nazirus Rishena. But now Lepel, he already was mated the Nazirus Rishena. So here as well, also Le Rishena B'Shnia. So now he could retroactively to off that the Nazirus that he did plus the carbon that he brought is going to be for the Shnia, not for the Rishena. Shaharei. Now the Rambam says here, Shaharei ein Ashnia Chola Elo La'achar Rishena. Not so clear what the Rambam is saying. In other words, the Sameach learns the pshat is l'chura. Once he already was mekayim the Nazirus Rishena, and that's over. So how could he be materit? L'chura he was mekayim it. So the answer is no. Since the Nazirus Shnia is coming behemshach to the Nazirus Rishena, so it comes out that since he still has the Shnia to do. So the Rishena is like still lingering. In other words, it's not like the Rishena is finished. So it's Kilu, the Rishena is still hovering over him. So now he could, that enables him to go ahead and be matter the Rishena. In other words, if we'd say the Rishena was done, whereas he finished the Rishena, it's done, so what's there to be matter? It's already done. But since the Rishena, the fact that he did the Rishena is negay to do the Shnia, so the Rishena is like still alive, so to speak. So now when he's matter the Rishena, so now he could go ahead and of that the Rishena knows. While there was a Rishena, so Memela obviously there's no chiyuv of the Shnia until he does the Rishena. Masha'enkin, now that he was matter the Rishena, so the Rishena is like still around. So now that he was matter the Rishena, so Memela he could use the Rishena for the Shnia. That's how the Sameach learns pshat. Shari eina Shnia chola ela lachar Rishena. And now, so therefore he could still be matter the Rishena because the Rishena is still here. And now, Varishen, not that you are matik, even shitira, kila eino mikars, as if it was never there. If it was never there, so the Nazirus Rishena that you did could be for the Shnia. Halacha Yudalef. Misha Omar Hareini Nazir La'elam. Oy Hareini Nazir Kol Yemei Chaya. So before we said, if a person says Stam Nazirus Shleishim Yem, if he specifies more than Shleishim Yem, it's Chal more than Shleishim Yem. Now he said Hareini Nazir La'elam, or Hareini Nazir Kol Yemei Chayai. So then is Hareze Nazir La'elam. So that has a din of a Nazir La'elam. The Amar Hareini Nazir Elef Shana. So then is Hareze Nazir Lizman Kotzuf. The Afal Pishiyev Sheshiyich Yodem Elef Shana. But it's a different din. There's a din of a Nazir Lizman Kotzuf, regardless of how long it is. If Shleishim Yem or more, but that's one gather of a Nazir Lizman Kotzuf. And then there's another gather, a Hagdara of a Nazir Elam. Ma halacha yud beis ma bein nazir elam le nazir lizman kotzuf. Sha nazir lizman, someone that's a nazir lizman kotzuf, it makes no difference how long the zman kotzuf is. Asur legaleach ad seif yimei naziri. So just like if he's for 30 days, is asur legaleach. So the same thing if he was nazir lizman kotzuf, even a prolonged period of time, is asur legaleach ad seif yimei naziri. Shnema kol yimei neder nizrei tar liyava al reishi ad malei sayom. That's been a geya on Nazir Lizman Kotzev, even if a long Zman Kotzev. But or Nazir Elam, but a Nazir Elam, someone that's a Nazir La'elam, is a Nazir La'elam, is a Mehich B'Saire, if his hair becomes very heavy, is Mekel B'Sar. It can't be Mamish, take off the hair completely, but he's Mekel B'Sar. He could take off, make it lighter, the hair. B'Shnei Mosur Chedesh, Ad Shnei Mosur Chedesh. Every 12 months, he could be Mekel B'Sar. Maybe Korbani, and when he does that, is maybe korban sholish behemes ksheyigalech shenemar vayihi miketz yomul yomim asher yigalech kichovid olav v'gilche. So in other words, there's those korbanos that a regular nazir brings when he finishes his nazirus. He brings the taglachas plus he brings the korbanos, which finishes off his yemei nizrei. This nazir elam also has a taglachas every 12 months. He could have a taglachas. Mishnei Masel Chedesh, Shnei Masel Chedesh, to be Mekel Besar, he's Mekel Besar, he makes the hair lighter, cuts off part of the hair in order for it to be lighter. And at that point in time, he also brings the korbanos like a regular Nazir would bring when he finishes his Naziris. But he doesn't finish his Naziris. He continues his Naziris. He's just having this taglachas every 12 months of Mekel Besar. V'avshalom Nazir Elam Hoya. V'davar zeh halachi hi mipi HaKabbalah. And that pasuk by him miketz yom l'yom was talking about Avshalom, what Avshalom would do. And that was because he was a Nazir Elam. And Memela every miketz yom l'yom, which means every year, he would have this taglachas. Because covered all of, because his hair was heavy, and therefore is vigilche. That's Nazir Elam Shanitma, is also a reza mevi korban tumah, umigaleach taglachas tumah, kemei Nazir Lizman Kotzev. So in that prat, there's no difference between a Nazir Elam and a Nazir Lizman Kotzev. The difference is the benigea, the taglachas that he's allowed to do, mishnei masar chedesh l'shnei masar chedesh, to be mekel besar. So there's a gather called a Nazir Elam, and then there's a gather called a Nazir Lizman Kotzev, a Nazir Lizman Kotzev. And the minimum of Lizman Kotzev is 30 days. Halacha Yud Gimel. So we learned that there's this Nazir Lizman Kotzev and there's a Nazir Elam. Now there's another Nazir which is Nazirus Shimshon. Shimshon lehoya Nazir Gomer. Sharei le Nadar benazir. Ela hamalach hefrishi min hatumah. There was a special, the Malach came to Moneach and to Ishtay and gave special instructions la frishi min hatumah. V'ketzad hoya dinei. Hoya osir biyayin. And also v'osir b'taglachas. Umuter li tami l'mesim. V'dover zeh halacha mipi HaKabbalah. This is generally a Nazir has all three. He's osir b'taglachas, he's osir b'tumah, and he's also osir biyayin. By Shimshon, there was no Isser li Tami L'Mesim. There was only an Isser in Yayin, and there was also an Isser in Taglachas. And that Isser of Taglachas, as we learned, was an Isser Taglachas La'ilam. He wasn't allowed to be Mekel Besari. Lefichach Misha Amar Hareini Nazir Kishimshon is Hareza Nazir min HaTaglachas, min HaYayin La'ilam, ve'eini Megaleach Kol Shnei Masar Chedesh. So the musig of being Megaleach Kol Shnei Masar Chedesh, it wasn't by Shimshon. By Negea Shimshon, Nazir Shimshon, there was no Nazir Elam is allowed to be Megaleach called Mishnei Masar Chedesh, Shnei Masar Chedesh. Mashenkin Shimshon, on one hand there was a kula that he was allowed to be Matam Mesim, and on the other hand there's a chumrah that there's no taglachas. Ve'eini Megaleach kol Shnei Masar Chedesh kishar Nazir Elam umuter lihitam Mesim. So that was Nazir Shimshon. Nachamol Nazir Shimshon was muter lihitam Mesim. It was Asir b'yayin and Asir b'taglachas. And there's no heter of the taglachas, even though he's a Nazir Elam. V'im Omar le'niskavanti ela li'ish acher sheshmei Shimshon. So even though the Lashon the Rambam said in the beginning of Halach Yidal, Misha Omar harini Nazir k'Shimshon. So I'm not sure if this Lashon over here, if a person would say harini k'Shimshon, so he's going to tell le'niskavanti ela li'ish acher sheshmei Shimshon. If he says harini Nazir k'Shimshon, and he's saying le'niskavanti ela li'ish acher sheshmei Shimshon, but he doesn't mean that Shimshon, the Shimshon that we're talking about, which was a Nazir Elam. But the Ram says, Eini Nazir, he's not a Nazir Bechlal. He's not a Nazir. So I'm not sure if it's going on the case of Hareini Nazir Kishimshon, or maybe he just said Hareini Kishimshon. Umi Shenodar Nazir Kishimshon is Eini Yochel Lihishoyel Al Nidrei. Shenazir Shimshon Le'elam Hoysa. So even though Nazir Shimshon was Le'elam, it was a Naziris Elam. A Nazir Elam L'chura could be Nishal Al Nidrei. Doesn't say that a Nazir Elam cannot be Nishal Al Nidrei. But a Naziris of Shimshon was a Naziris that didn't come through a Neder. So Memela, Naziris Shimshon was La'elam, because it came through a Malach, so there was no possibility of being Nishal Al Nidrei. I mean, L'chura, it's not pshat that a Nazir Elam can be Nishal Al Nidrei. Naziris Shimshon was La'elam Hoysa. In other words, it was a Naziris which you can't be Nishal Al Nidrei. So the Chidush is that if a person says that he's a Nazir Kishimshon, so even though L'chura here, he's taking upon himself this Nazirus, and something which you take upon yourself, you could be Shayil, but over here we're saying no, that since you're saying Areini Nazir Kishimshon, and by Shimshon he wasn't able to be Shayil Al Nidrei, so over here you also cannot be Shayil Al Nidrei. The Rambam says that Shmuel Aramosi was a Nazir Elam. How did he become a Nazir Elam? So the Radva says because Chana was Madir him. Chana was Dirasi ben Nazirus Elam. So the question is, a father can be Madir his son to be a Nazir, but a mother cannot be Madir his son to be a Nazir. The question is, how did Shmuel Aramasi become a Nazir Elam? So the Rebbe is Mazmum Kudasikas that the pshat is when Chana was Madir him, To be a Nazir, it's not pshat. She was being makabel for him Nazirus. Her neder was that she's going to act with him as if he's a Nazir. That was her neder. As far as she's concerned, she's going to act with him as he's a Nazir. She's not going to give him wine to drink. He's not going to become Tamil Mason. She's going to act with him as if he's a Nazir. However, he himself didn't have to be makabel. Mashenkin, when he grew up and he was makabel, what Chana said, so he became a Nazir Elam. That's the pshat. She was taka madrim, but she wasn't madrim in the fact that it became be'emes achales nazirus. She was madr for herself that she's going to act with him na'efan of a nazir. And then he himself was mekabel the nazirus himself. Halacha yud zayin. Ha'emer hareini nazir malei habayis e malei hakupa. Didn't specify. He said, I want to be a nazir, a full house, a full box. Is beit kinesi. Im omar lehoye bedaiti she'eya nazir kol yoma. I didn't really mean that I should be a nazir my entire life. I want to be a long nazir, like a full house, a full box. But he meant to say a long nazir. So as I raise a nazir shleishim yem bulvad. Just like we said before, that a person says, I want to have a long, very long nazir. So it's always shleishim yem, if he didn't specify how many days. However, vim amar stam nadarti, he didn't say how long he wanted. It was stam nadarti, whatever the chacham will tell me. That's pshat and malei akupa, malei habayis, I want to do. Is reinas akupa kilu milei charbu, and then the year nazir kol yamav. And we interpret what he's saying, that he's saying I want to be a nazir for all the amount of days that there could be mustard seeds in the house, and memela, which although that's also mugbal, so even if he says 1,000 years, he's not considered a nazir elam. But we're learning the pshat that it meant to say I want to be a nazir forever. That's how we're learning pshat in his words. It's not like we're learning pshat the amount of days, because lepel mamish is you can't count it. So that's not what he meant. What he meant was forever. That's how Chazal are understanding pshat and what he meant. The imam stam nadarti reina sakupa kila malei charbu v'yeh nazir kol yamav, which means what we're learning the pshat and what he's saying, that I want to be a nazir for my entire life. V'yesh lo legalech mishnei masur chedesh shnei masur chedesh v'yavi korbanesav. Kishar Nazir Elam is nachama. When a person says Arini Nazir Malei Habayis, if he says clearly I didn't mean for my entire life, I only meant a long Nazirus, so then it's 30 days. But if he didn't say what he meant and he just said Stam Nadarti, which means I'm relying on the Chachamim to interpret what I meant, so we interpret what he meant, that he should be a Nazir Elam. Halacha Yudches. So Eimer Hareini Nazir Kis Aresh. He says clearly, I'm a Nazir like the hairs of my head. So the pshat is Harezik Misha Omar Hareni Naziras Olai Keminyan Sareshi. How many Naziras am I accepting? Keminyan Sareshi, a Keminyan Afara Oretz, a Keminyan Chelayam. Lefichach Yigaleach Kol Shleishim Yem. And V'yaschol Lemnis Nazir Shneir Shleishim Yem. So again, he should be, after 30 days he's Migaleach. And then he's again Yaschol Lemnis Shleishim Yem. Nazir Shneir Shleishim Yem. And then again V'yigalech. Because obviously he's not going to be able to live the amount of time that to have the Naziris in Kechela Yom or Kesar Reshe. B'chol Tiglachas v'Tiglachas, Ein Shesi Yain v'Lein B'Tam V'Lemesim. Because right as soon as he has this Tiglachas, so Memela it terminates his first Naziris, starts the next Naziris. So Memela against is Chal all the Yisurim of Naziris right away, right after the Tiglachas starts the next Naziris. So bechol taglachas ein shesi yain v'lei metam v'lemesim. V'imshasa initma afilu b'yema taglachas, that is a leika, because as soon as taglachas is over, starts the next naziris. The next naziris again is chayav malchus. If he's shesi yain, or he's metam v'lemesim. Halacha yutes. So Eimer hareini nazir im eichel kikar zu. And then again he says hareini nazir im eichlena. And then again hareini nazir im echlena im v'achla. So he took upon himself 3 times Nazirus if he eats this kikar, is Arei Zechayim ben Nazirus, Kamini Shomar, because he accepted upon himself separate Nazirus. Umeina achas, achar achas, he keeps counting each one after the other. Kol achas mehem shleishim yem, umigaleach b'seif kol shleishim, umevi korbani. Again, if a person accepted upon himself 3 Nazirusin, so immediately he has to, after 30 days he makes a taglachas, and then he has the next Nazirus, and al derazeh, the third Nazirus.